coronavirus outbreak.
Appropriately social distance.
Spouting political
The number of new cases
buses,
is
density.
Today is day 64. Since we closed down New York.
Hello. Well, welcome.
Thank you.
For those of you who don't know me, my name is Dina Pearlman, and this is Jennifer Hruska. Jennifer is a multi-talented artist. She is says in her bio, highly active designer and entrepreneur of digital music instruments, a performing jazz pianist and synthesist, a composer of pop, jazz, and classical music, and an educator of all of these above. And she's also the vice president of the Pearlman Foundation. And it's really an honor to have her here. I had first heard of Jennifer as that young woman who was fixing my father's 2600, which I later learned, and she'll tell you all about it, was not the exact story. I was living away from home at the time, and I didn't get to meet all of my father's synthesizer friends. And it wasn't until years later that I had this glimpse of this mysterious woman. It was at my father's funeral. I remember that's when I first saw you face to face.
Yeah.
Quiet, very focused, and intense. And who is this person? So I went back and I was looking through the roster and I saw your name and I started to put two and two together. Yeah, it was crazy. I reached out to her in a quest for finding more information about a lot of things that had happened in my father's later years with his synthesizer life, and I found Jen such a straight shooter, telling it like it is, but really involved and really, really interested in helping out. And without actually ever meeting her really in person, I asked her to be on the foundation board, and it is one of the best moves I ever made, I have to say. So 15 months later, here we are. I consider part of my extended synthesizer family, and it's a real honor to have you here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm going to have you take over the screen. So we want to see the full scenario, and we'll ask you some questions.
Sure.
We're going to start. I'm going to ask her some questions, and then we're going to invite some questions to our viewers, of who I see a lot of people are doing some great emoting. Yes, you do smell synthesizers, Alex Ball. Yes, you do. All right. All right.
I like that story. A lot better than the real story that I fixed, like Alan's, 2600, right? I wish. I think that would be Mary Locke, not me. But no, I actually fixed his printer, which is nowhere near as interesting. But he was so kind, when I met him, and I said, I really hadn't had a lot of time on the 2600, and had never owned one. And he said, "Oh, well, take mine," and I can't take yours, but he insisted, and I was with Jim Heinz and at the time, who really knows the 2600 well, and so I did. I had it in my studio for a couple of weeks, and all I had to do was take phone calls to try to get his printer to work, and go buy him some ink, and these very sweet things. Yeah. But what a great man, his legacy and everything, and what a great guy. I got to tell the one story about him, which was, he was elderly when I, got to know him. He could barely get across the room, I'm telling you, but he was so vibrant. And he was telling me about how he had plans to set up a lab in the basement of his apartment building. He was going to get he was going to start soldering and doing all these like crazy things. And I'm like, oh yeah. And I'm thinking to myself, really? And he'd walk out of the room, and then your mother would walk in, and she'd say, oh, he's not going to do that. So
not again. Oh no, not again.
Yeah. Oh no, not again. So what a great man.
Thank you. He was wonderful. So we got a great crowd here, and so we have some questions. Right. I'm going to post.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, everybody. So tell us all about your general musical background before synthesizers, and then how did that lead you into the world of synthesizers?
Yeah. Well, the music caught me at a very young age, and I was, my parents had a piano in the house, and so I gravitated to that very quickly, and studied music in school, and then at the University of Illinois, in Champaign-Urbana, I went there and got a degree in music education, actually, and I wasn't really all that into synthesizers at the time, but I was playing some jazz and composing, and I needed, some keyboards to play around town. And graduated from there, moved to the East Coast, anxious to get out of the Midwest, and came to the East Coast and was looking for a job, honestly. I needed to make a living. And I had met somebody at a party who had said, hey, I know some folks at Kurzweil, and they're having their summer picnic next Saturday. Do you want to go? And I was like, do I want to go? Of course I want to go. So I had this idea in my head I was going to go to this picnic and somehow meet somebody and talk myself into a job there. And that is what I ended up doing. Of course, the day of, I didn't feel well, and I was sick. I had this crazy fever. I went to the doctor, and he said, go right home. And I said, okay, sounds good. And I got in the car and went straight to that party and met some really great people and, talked my way into a job. And that really began, I don't know, I would say that was grad school really for me, because I didn't really know a lot about electronics at the time. But I had a musical, training, and they were graciously looking for that. They needed a sound designer, and they wanted somebody who knew the instrumentation and knew what it was supposed to sound like. So yeah, I ended up doing a lot of sound design for them, and worked with just incredible people. I mean, Bob Chidlaw and Hal Chamberlain, and of course Ray Kurzweil was there at the time, working. And this was before the transfer over to Young Chang, but it was great times. I mean, really, in many ways, some of the best times in my life. Challenging, because these were, I was thrown into the fire with MIT engineers who were really smart, didn't exactly have the most social graces, shall we say. And, you had to think before you even asked a question, So I remember it was really great times. I worked hard and made a lot of good friends.
And you worked with both Bob Moog and my father at that time. Were they either of them there at that time, or were they there
Bob
later?
Moog was there at that time. Yep. And we didn't interact on a project. He was there working on other things than I was. But we got to know each other because we would all go to lunch together. So we would walk through the nice park that's kind of out the back, and had some interesting conversations with Bob. He was an interesting guy, for sure. Very interesting guy.
So, I have a lot of conversations with you and Michelle Moog and Lisa Belladonna and other women about what it's like to be in this sort of almost predominantly male environment, industry. And I would assume that back in those days, Kurzweil was a lot like that as well. I know it was at ARP. And what was it like? What was that like to be a woman in this industry?
Well, how cool is it that, you and Michelle, are now, running these, organizations, and we've got women, kind of at the top, putting the legacy forward, right? But yeah, lots of guys, guys everywhere, in this industry, and still even to this day. But, I never really was too aware of it, I think. I was just kind of going along doing my thing. And but I should say that I grew up with a family of men. I have 4 brothers, including a twin brother. My father was a huge influence in my life. I was very, very tight with him. And my mother was very busy, and so it was, I don't know, was it a masculine household? Could I say that? I don't know. But needless to say, especially with my brothers, 6 kids, and so I've always been comfortable, around guys, and there's a competitiveness, and I don't know, there's an energy that I grew up with, and so I don't think I really noticed too much, until sort of later on. But yeah, I think it's changing a little bit. I don't know. I'm teaching over at Berkeley now, and there are definitely more women now in the classes. Not a majority, but definitely more women there. And, definitely a lot of women synthesists, synthesis players out there now.
Yep.
So the women are in the music, and the women are in electronic music now. And I kind of am thinking that the next stage is, they're going to get into, some of the design and the programming aspects of it. Because every engineer I know and have ever worked with in this industry, they're musicians. So, the musicians find the technology, or the technology finds, there's some kind of link, right, between these two things. So I think our day is coming. Our day is coming.
I think we've arrived, actually.
I think we have arrived. I mean, here we are, you and me.
So you are an entrepreneur yourself.
I am,
yes. Tell us about...
A serial entrepreneur, my mother likes to say.
So tell us about Together Audio. When I was researching a little bit, it felt to me that you have an interesting business philosophy where you really want to help musicians. I mean, it's so aligned with what the foundation is like. It feels almost like a not-for-profit. So maybe some of the viewers here would be interested to know about Together Audio.
Yeah, thanks for asking. Together Audio with a 2, and that's the current business that I'm running. I started that about 4 years ago, I want to say now. I had sold my previous company, Sonovox, to In Music Brands, and that was fine. That was good. Took a couple years off and went back to music and really focused on music. And then, I started to get that itch to build synthesizers again. I don't know, once you start, you can't stop, it seems.
That's what they tell
But yeah,
me.
we founded it myself along with two other fabulous musicians and engineers, Patrice Tarabia, who's out of New York, and Rick Cohen, who many of you probably know. He's
I think
been on
here,
the
actually.
MMA board for many, many years. Also, just an incredible musician, incredible programmer. And these two powerhouses and I don't know, somehow we talked ourselves into starting this new company. And, we love synthesizers. We wanted to build software synthesizers, and but the plug-in market's pretty crowded. It's hard to, get noticed there. But we also wanted to make sure our plugins got, noticed and in the hands of as many musicians as possible. And we were trying to figure out a way to kind of, give back. What else can we do? And so we came up with this idea of a business model where you pay what you want. So the customer chooses the price. We do have a minimum $10 that they can choose. But customers choose the price that they can pay for our product. And the idea is that, everybody will, that way more people will have access to what we're building, right?
Right.
And then out of that, 10%, they can choose to have 10% of what they pay go to a charity. So we have like 4 charities that people can choose from. And so it's, pay what you want and give 10% to charity. And it's cool, it's actually really starting to take off. I think, people being at home, getting back in the studio is certainly helping, but people love the model. And, I think it's the word is definitely starting to spread a bit. We do virtual instruments, we do effects plugins. Shout out to Korg. We do some oscillators and effects for the Korg multi-engine. So if you've got one of the Korg, like the Mini Logue and the new little NTS synth, we've got some products for those. But yeah, it's just a lot of love. It's a lot of love and a lot of fun, and get to build synths. Yeah.
There is a lot of love in the synth world, I have to say.
I knew there really is. I mean, we really are a family. It's sometimes a dysfunctional family, but hey.
David Nash says hello. Rick Cohen is here.
All right.
I'll name the whole list that I see afterwards. So you've been teaching online since the COVID-19 crisis. You've been teaching online at Berkeley. How has this new method been for you? I know as all of us as creators, we have taken our somewhat already expansive web presence and expanded it to incredible proportions.
Yeah, it's I know, and it all happened so fast. It was like 1 minute we're on Berkeley campus and teaching in their great studios and labs, and then it was like, okay, we'll see you guys, have a nice spring break, and oh, by the way, when you get back, you're going to be teaching online, And so that was quite a shock. But it's good and bad. I like teaching in person better, I think. I like the interaction. I like seeing the students' faces, and there's body language and there's interaction, and I love that part of it. On the other hand, the online thing has some advantages too. One, I get to work in my studio, which is very fun. I know it inside and out, so if something goes wrong, I can debug it very quickly. But it can reach more people. And I'm doing some private teaching this summer, and actually doing a class teaching logic, and I've got really people from all over the place coming in to join that class. So that's kind of cool, that they can be anywhere and learn these things. But so we're all making do. But Berkeley, I'll tell you, I just started teaching there in September, and wow, I mean, what an organization, what a school. I mean, of course, I've hired their students for many years, and I've had interns and all this, but teaching there and really being, there and part of the community as a faculty member is incredible. And the people in the EPD department are just amazing. I thought when I first went there, I thought, oh, I'm going to have a lot of things to teach these guys about, the business world, And the exact opposite happened. After I was there for about a semester, I went, oh, no. These guys are teaching me
Yes.
a lot that the corporate world really needs to know about,
That's the thing about teaching. I'm a teacher as well, and I always come back to what we say in the yoga world is namaste is the teacher in me is honoring the teacher in you, and we all learn from each other so much.
It's really, it's incredible, really. I'm glad I'm moving to that, stage. It's time to give back, and like I said, I'm getting so much, out of it myself, and the students are really great, really sharp, so it's challenging, but a lot of fun.
Cool. So it's right on time. Kurt Adder has wanted to know if you can show your synths in the studio, and we're just at that time, everybody. Actually, so
I know. It's like, stop talking. Show me your gear.
Show the gear already. Come on. All right. And just so everyone knows that after Jen shows us her studio, she is going to answer questions. So you'll just field them through the chat, and I'll field them to her if that works. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, cool. So let's see. I hope everybody can somewhat see things here. Should I start? I'll go sort of panoramic this way.
Okay.
So not starting with the ARP, I apologize. I'm starting with the Moog, but hey, like we say, we're a big family here.
That's right.
But yeah, this is the Moog subsequent 37. So this was sort of the follow-on to the sub 37 that new Moog, has put out. And I got this maybe a couple years ago, if it's been that long. Not that long ago, but I love this synth. I mean, it's I mean, the sound, of course, is incredible, but I just like getting my hands on it, and then I've got a theremin, a Moog theremin, sort of right behind it, and I don't play the theremin for pitch because that's like insanely hard to do, and to do well anyway. But I use it as a controller, so. So I can, I've got it right now hooked CV into the filter, and so I can, open and close the filter by how close I'm getting to the theremin.
Oh wow, that sounds great. So the Moog and the theremin are hooked up together.
Yeah, they're hooked up together.
As they should be.
I know, right? I mean, they're like, brother and sister or something, But yeah, I love this piece of gear. It's really fabulous. And unlike a lot of analog synths, you can actually save your patches. Love that. And then down below, of course, I got a lot of Kurzweils around. I got a few stacked against the wall over there, if you can see those. And a couple, an old 2500, 2600. And then I've got a Kurzweil SP6 down there. That's my main controller. And it's got some great sounds in it too. And I use that when I'm gigging. I do a lot of jazz playing, jazz gigs. Well, I used to, not so much these days, but that's what I bring. And this is a fun piece here. This is an old SID station, or I should say a new SID station. I don't know if Electron put this out. I don't know if you guys remember this, but this has the old Commodore 64 chip inside of it, and which is one of the first, synths that our first chips that people used to, make music with. That was, and Hal Chamberlain, of course, wrote his famous book, Musical Applications of Microprocessors, right? Some of that was built, around that concept. So this is fun. They only had like a few hundred of these, leftover, Commodore 64 chips with, God, who knows, they pulled them out of PCs somewhere. So they had a limited supply, and Electron put these into a box and made a synth out of it. So, it's real raunchy sounding. It's all 8-bit sound, and, but it's great. I mean, I'm nervous every time I turn it on, like it may go off and never turn on again. It's one of those really fragile things, but I really dig it. Some more Kurzweil gear, the old K2500 racks. Then, of course, the 2600. And this is actually on loan to me at the moment. Dave Mash let me borrow this, and Dave Mash is also giving his 2600 to the ARP Foundation. So huge shout out to Dave Mash. Thank you. Super generous. It's actually signed by yours truly, Mr. Pearlman. So that's very cool. And it's in perfect condition. I mean, Dave did lots of gigging with this thing, lots and lots of gigging with it. And he just took, incredible care of it, and it works great, And then, let's see. All right, does that work? Okay. Then I've got this modular setup, which is a bunch of Pittsburgh modules. So they, all different kinds of stuff. This is actually also on loan to my studio right now from Berkeley. I may be teaching a class on synthesis next fall, so I'm trying to get my modular chops up in order. And but I'm having a ton of fun with this. This piece was, this setup was, if you heard that opening piece, you heard a lot of that rhythmic stuff that was happening between the left and right channels. If you go back and listen to it or something, that was all coming out of this modular setup. No patch saving out of this guy, so it's challenging in that way, but I love it. It's super improvisational, right? I mean, you can't ever really get back to the same thing. So, it's real time music making, but it's very, very fun. And then, just your, rack of various things. Again, more Kurzweil gear. I've got a KSP8 here, which is fun. An old Effectron. I love those Effectrons. Those are fun, these digital delays. An old brick wall filter. A real honest-to-God, hardware brick wall filter, which is kind of fun. And what else do I get in there? An old piece from. Oh no, I guess I don't have that up there right now. Yeah, what a distressor, so some stuff, and then a lot of mic pre's for when I'm recording microphones. So I got an Ampex and an old Altec. Those are kind of my vintage mic pre's. Those are really fun. A couple of home brews. Bob Chidlaw, who from Kurzweil, who's now over at Source Audio. When he and I were hanging out, he'd make me a lot of gear, and we call everything he made from Bobco. His name is Bob, so we say. So I got a couple of Bobco pieces here, some benchmark mic pre's and things like that. But yeah, that's about it. Turntable, bass, got a grand piano in the next room. But yeah, not crazy amounts of gear, but enough. Believe me, enough.
You got some great stuff there.
Yeah, fun stuff.
So I want to open this live session to our viewing audience. The way it'll happen is you can just go into the chat room and ask a question, and I'll let Jen know. So if anyone has any questions, Let's go ahead and start. While you're thinking about that, I can tell you who's here. Michael Whalen. Really good that you're here. I'm so glad. Jeff Kellum, Rick Cohen. He's been here. He's been correcting my bad spelling as I've been trying to send people
Oh,
to.
he's good at that.
Well, it was bad. I was
He
trying
does all the proofreading for our company.
together
Yeah.
audio. All right. Let's see who else we have. David Mash. We have Synth Chaser.
Right.
Yeah. There's probably some people that are not commenting that are here too. I can't really see who they are right now.
Yeah,
Adrian
good.
Heredia from LA. We got Glenn from New Zealand. Bill Fox. Gary's here. Gary Elton.
Oh, Gary.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So we got a great
Hey,
crew
Gary.
here. Alex Ball, he was here. I don't know if he's still
Alex.
here.
Very
Yep.
cool.
So, what is an NS10, Michael Whalen? Or maybe you can answer that.
An NS10. You talk about the speakers.
Hi, Patrice, Brian. Oh, your brother's here. Yes.
Oh, my brother's here. Cool. Yeah. Well, the NS10, the Yamaha NS10s, those are the studio monitors that everybody used for years and years until probably every woofer was blown out of those things. But yeah, they were sort of the de facto cheap studio monitors that everybody had, and like I said, and it's funny because studios would have extra woofers around, that they could just replace, all the time, and I literally think they ran out of them. This is an original pair though, and I think somebody is making these again, which is kind of fun. I don't actually have them hooked up to my analog gears, because that would almost certainly blow out those woofers. So
I have a question. The instruments that you played on the beginning piece, played the theremin and the moog.
Right. The subsequent 37 and that opening kind of oscillation thing, and with the theremin, the filter, and and then I went to the 2600 and did that sort of almost like a cello, that almost sort of synthy cello sound.
Yeah.
Beautiful. God, it's just gorgeous, thick, sawtooth, wonderful stuff. And then that noise sweep, that when before the second half comes in, that's the filter of the ARP 2600 opening up as I throw the resonance way up, and it gets, it starts oscillating, getting in that pitch. Which, I actually, it's funny because I didn't have that part recorded, and I thought, do I want to go back and set up the whole recording? I tried a couple of plugins, and I was like, oh my God, these don't even come close. I was like, no, got to go back to the 2600. Went back there and got the noise, going. And then the modular is all that, not the drum, obviously there's drum set in that piece, but so not that, but all the other rhythmic stuff that's happening, that's going on in that piece is all from the modular setup. And then I threw a sampled upright bass in there for sort of a pitched instrument. And some of the jazz stuff, bleeds into everything I do these days, it seems. But so I got that upright bass in there. And then the Kurzweil piano, playing some fourths kind of harmonies to, that gives it that melodic kind of fusion-y jazz sort of flavor, Yeah. I had a really good time putting this piece together. I've been experimenting with how to bring electronics and jazz together because these are like the two poles of my creative existence right now. Shout out to my amazing jazz teacher, Bob Christofferson, and, in synthesis and electronics. And I've been trying to put these things together. Where do they come together? Where do they not come together so great? And so with this whole, pandemic's getting me back into the studio, and I'm starting to sort of find this sound that I'm, searching for, putting these two things together. Not quite there yet, but parts of it are sort of peeking through a little bit. Yeah.
Could I ask you to do one little improv on that, on the last modular, the one, and forgive me for not remembering the name, the one that's next to the 2600?
Well, I would accept that the way I can't do it right now because my computer is tied up with this, and the way I've got it rigged right now, I am using my computer to generate MIDI clock, which then runs into that, and then that feeds MIDI clock into there. So, of course I could use the internal clock and all this, but it would take a little while to, get that making something, making some sound.
So Jeff Kellum is really excited about combining jazz and electronics.
Oh, cool.
It's part of his past, and he looks forward to hearing more.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Where can we hear more of your music? Tell us about.
Sure. Yeah. So go to jenniferhruska.com, and that's my sort of artist's website, I guess you might say. And I've got a page on there with a bunch of my compositions, range of my CD. The Underground Forest is there, and I've got a bunch of electronic stuff that's a little weird and kind of fun. And I do some sound design and compositions for theater sometimes, so I've got some of that there, and some classical pieces as well. So kind of a little of everything there, and hopefully this summer I'm trying to take this summer to produce another CD. We'll see how it all goes, but it's again trying to get this jazz and electronics thing to come together. So
well, I think it's a combination that is made to work together.
Yeah. No.
I'm an old Weather Report, a fan myself. So.
Yes,
I love the combination. Jazz and synthesizers, I think, are a perfect combination.
Match made in heaven.
A match made in heaven. All right, so I'm going to open up one more time for any questions, and if not, I believe in short and sweet, so we'll be ending shortly. There will be some.
Nice.
Hi, Lisa. Hi, Lisa Belladonna's here.
Hey, Lisa.
So we have links to Jen's website for both for her business and for her music, and so you can go back and look at that. We'll also have this posted on YouTube, so if you want to hear the piece that you made again. Actually, let's end with you telling us about how this piece came about. If for those of you who missed it, again, you'll be able to see this on a playback on YouTube. And this was obviously geared towards what's going on right now in the world. So.
Yeah, it's I guess I've sort of titled it, at least for this point, Quarantine 64, and it's just about this time that we're going through. It's so strange on so many levels, and all of us live musicians now are back in our studios, and we're making music that way and sharing music that way, and so this is one of a series of pieces. I haven't written 64. The 64 part came from Governor Cuomo talking about day 64 of the quarantine in New York City. But I've got some quotes in there that, stuff that was like, whoa, But I think that's mostly what this new material is about, is just expressing kind of what we're going through. It's just so real every day, like many of us, right? We wake up and we're like, oh yeah, we're in quarantine. We can't go anywhere, But I do go out at night, and I take my dogs out at night for a walk, because I can let them off leash, and even though I'm in a fairly urban area, there is nobody out, right? And so they can run. And I feel like I'm in some kind of strange, like, sci-fi movie or something, It's
absolutely.
It's I love sci-fi, but it's weird. I'm looking forward to getting past this. But while we're in it. Let's just be in it, write music about it, and find anything good that we can out of it, right?
Right.
That's what we do as artists. Yeah.
We have a couple of questions coming in. Lisa
Okay.
Belladonna says, "Hi, what are your major influences when composing?"
Wow. When composing, what are my major influences? Well, I'm sort of at the core, I'm a songsmith. I improvise and I, do that kind of stuff. But when I'm composing, I'm thinking, I always end up back at the song, and by that I mean I'm telling a story,
Yes.
from the composition, from the beginning to the middle to the end. There's some story that's being told, and very often I don't even know what it is, consciously. I don't think, oh, I'm going to tell this story and then I go tell it. It's more like these things kind of bubble up, I think, maybe from my subconscious or something, and so I tell a story, and there's melody, and there's these different aspects to it. So as far as real influences, it's usually what I'm listening to at the moment, and these days I'm pretty heavy into the jazz piano stuff, and so that's finding its way in. I was a real fan of Annie Lennox. I know that, talk about a songsmith. Wow, right? So her stuff has always been influential, for me. In fact, my CD is very, very influenced by her. So yeah, I don't know so much about musical influences. I think it's more just life influences. What's happening.
Telling your truth through music.
Yeah, and it's funny how you go through that process, and at the end you go, oh wow, that's what that is, and that's where that came from, and it's just this. I don't know. I don't touch it in my conscious mind necessarily. It just kind of shows up.
I think composing, whether it's a composition on paper or canvas, or whether it's a composition through a musical instrument or a song, is a way of trying to work out something that you can't get out in other ways.
Yeah, I think so. And I can be, pretty closed off, and kind of oblivious to emotional things sometimes, but not when I'm making music, when I'm, if I get into an argument with my, in a relationship, I'm like, what? I don't even understand what you're saying. But then I'll do this really complex sort of, musical stuff, and then it all becomes clear to me. So, yeah, I don't know, some kind of gateway, to our emotions or something.
Lisa says, "Thank you for such a wonderful answer." And I have a question.
Oh, thanks, Lisa. And wow, do I love your stuff. I'm shooting to be as good as you are, Lisa. What she does, an hour-long improvisation in her studio is, what Lisa does is so incredible, so incredible. So got a lot to look up to.
So I have a question from Matthew Savant, who said he used to work with you, and I got a question from Alex Ball. Alex, first, because he asked first, is, do you have any broad tips for someone going out on their own with their own music business?
Yes. Yeah, well, entrepreneurship is, we're all, if you're a musician, you're an entrepreneur, right? Because you got to figure out how to make a living. Yeah, I would, I'm teaching a class on entrepreneurship right now to Berkeley students, It's called The Startup of You. But I want to rename it to, how are you going to make money when you get out of here, Because I say The Startup of You, and they're like, what? What does that mean? And then I say, it's a class about how to make money when you graduate. And they're like, oh, yeah, I need that, And one thing I tell them a lot is, spend about half your time marketing. It's such a dry response. I realize it's really boring, not as interesting as what I talked about a few minutes ago. But really, a lot of people miss that, especially artists. They're so into their craft, and they do such beautiful things, but they don't spend the time to get the word out,
Yeah.
And so people don't know what they're doing. So you either got to do it yourself. You got to market yourself. You got to find a way to get out there. And if you really don't like doing it, then you got to find somebody else to do it for you. So that would be my advice: is get your stuff out there in the world. Listen to what people say about it. Take the feedback. I mean, you can't run a business on an island. You know what I mean? It's like serendipity. You can't stand in one place and figure out what's in front of you, right? I mean, life doesn't work like that, right? You got to take a step, look around, take a step, look around, and businesses are like that. You got to get it out in front of the people. Whatever you're doing. Yeah.
Michael Biarello's in the house. Yeah.
Michael!
All right. So Matthew, I'm sorry, his name Matthew Moniz, and wants to know if you still have your own company and are you looking for help? She would love to work with you again. So maybe
Hey, Matt. I remember Matt. Yes, I remember you, and good to. Thanks for tuning in. Yeah, I was talking about it earlier, but yeah, I do. I did go work for another company for a while, but I came back to entrepreneurship. It's in the blood, and it's just a better lifestyle. You work hard, but it's worth it. So yes, I am running a company, Matt, and yes, we're always looking for talented people. So reach out, email me, Hruska at Together Audio.
Alrighty, so we're heading towards the end of our time. If there's we could take one last question if anyone has one. If not, I will add that this is a community-based series, so a lot of you out there that are watching are actually wonderful, talented innovators and musicians yourself. Please reach out to us if you would like to be part of this series, or if you know of someone who you think we would like to talk to and showcase. All of these, anyone that is on here will have their links posted and available, so you can reach out and give them your love. Okay, we have our last question, which is a great question, and we're going to put you on the spot now. No. Okay, Michael Biarello wants to know what your desert island synth is.
Ooh. He's a good boss. He challenges me. I somehow he found me out that way. Desert Island synthesizer.
Just one?
Wow.
Who has just one? That's what I want.
I know. That's tough. Wow. I think, wow, that's a good one. I'd have to say, and it's not even really a synth. Okay, and that's not really a fair answer. But if it wasn't a synth, I would say it's my Kurzweil piano, because of course I'm a pianist and I can play lots of notes and I can get harmony and bass and melody going, right? But to strictly synthesizer, these days I think I'd take that modular. Because it has the most, life in it, like long-term exploration potential. Like those modular systems. Oh my God, there is so much inside of those, and you could be on a desert island for the rest of your life and never exhaust all the sonic possibilities out of a good modular system, right? Mm-hmm. The Pittsburgh modular or Eurorack or whatever. So. I think that's my answer.
All right. And
hey, let's not forget, this is the ARP Foundation, and we're doing this for the ARP Foundation. And if people, we did become a nonprofit organization, and if people can afford to throw a few bucks towards the foundation, we'd be very grateful. We're a nonprofit, so you can give that money to us rather than Uncle Sam, and that's always a good thing. And but we're all working hard to kind of get Alan's legacy out there, but also what he really believed in. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but Alan Pearlman was very big on education And that's one of the really founding principles of the ARP Foundation, is to
Pass it on.
do what we can to try to get young people interested in synthesizers, to really promote that, and so, yeah, definitely support the ARP Foundation, support the Moog Foundation. It's we're all just trying to spread the synthesizer love, right?
That's right. That's right. Alrighty, thank you so much for your time. There's a lot of comments, but you'll be able to go and look back at them afterwards.
Cool.
Jen,
I can't wait.
And thank you everyone for joining us. And I just want to, let's get in my broadcast mode.
Thanks everybody for listening to my crazy stories.
All right. Everyone stay safe, stay healthy. We will be back with one or even two in the next week. I know next week Don Lewis will be joining us.
That's a good one.
Yeah. And I have a few other people, some surprises in store. So good luck. Stay safe, stay healthy. Keep the creative juices flowing.
All right.